So, the Manhattan District Attorney just hit Donald Trump's business empire with RICO charges. We're talking organized crime statutes here, folks. The same legal framework used to take down mob bosses is now being aimed at the Trump organization, and this happened less than 5 minutes ago. It's honestly hard to believe we're at this point, but here we are. Now, Alvin Bragg, Manhattan's district attorney, has been building this case methodically for months. He's the guy who successfully prosecuted the Trump Organization's CFO Alan Weisselberg back in 2022, and he's been known for being careful, thorough, and not rushing into anything. But guess what? Today he filed a sweeping 127-page indictment alleging that the Trump Organization operated as a criminal enterprise. And according to reports from Politico just minutes ago, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has already issued an emergency statement distancing itself from any Trump-related investments, calling the RICO charges a fundamental threat to American business integrity. This isn't just about tax fraud or financial shenanigans anymore. We're talking about the legal system treating Trump's company the way it treats organized crime syndicates. And trust me, when Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha himself, puts out an emergency response within minutes of an indictment dropping, you know the business world is absolutely panicking about what this means. Let me fill you in on what's been happening. So, Alvin Bragg became Manhattan District Attorney back in January 2022, stepping into a role that was already knee-deep in Trump investigations. His predecessor, Cyrus Vance Jr., had spent years building cases around Trump's financial dealings, and Bragg inherited that whole mess. From the get-go, he seemed cautious. Some Democrats even criticized him early on for not being aggressive enough against Trump. But that was strategic. Bragg wasn't interested in splashy headlines or half-baked cases. He wanted something that would stick. Whether it was the Alan Weisselberg conviction for tax fraud, the civil fraud trial led by New York Attorney General Letitia James that resulted in a $454 million judgment, or the ongoing criminal probes into financial misrepresentations, Bragg really cemented himself as methodical and thorough. He wasn't going to file charges unless he had an airtight case. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We're now dealing with RICO charges. For those who aren't lawyers, RICO stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It was created in 1970 specifically to go after organized crime, and it's an incredibly powerful tool. It lets prosecutors connect the dots between different criminal acts and show they're all part of one big criminal enterprise. Instead of prosecuting individual crimes separately, RICO lets you prosecute the entire organization. This mess is unfolding because Bragg's team has apparently gathered evidence showing a pattern of criminal behavior spanning decades. According to CBS News reporting from this morning, the indictment alleges systematic insurance fraud, bank fraud, tax evasion, and falsification of business records, all coordinated through the Trump Organization's corporate structure. Federal prosecutors and state authorities are at a standstill over how to handle overlapping jurisdictions, and some legal experts worry about potential double jeopardy issues. And guess who's stuck right in the middle? Yep, Donald Trump. He's supposed to be the Republican frontrunner for 2024, campaigning for president while fighting off multiple criminal indictments. But here's the kicker. Bragg isn't interested in political optics or timing his cases around elections. He wants accountability, and he's building a case that could potentially dismantle Trump's entire business empire. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. RICO cases are exceptionally difficult to prove. They require showing not just that crimes happened, but that they were coordinated, systematic, and part of an ongoing criminal enterprise. Bragg wouldn't file this unless he believed he could win. Now, back to the matter at hand. Reports from around 5 minutes ago revealed just how explosive this indictment actually is. Bragg labeled Trump's business practices as a decades-long pattern of racketeering and even went as far as to say the Trump Organization functioned no differently than a traditional organized crime family, just with real estate instead of illegal gambling. Talk about strong words. Essentially, Bragg was calling Trump a mob boss for operating a legitimate business as a front for systematic criminal activity. And this wasn't a private conversation. Bragg made sure to announce this at a press conference, making it clear that he was not pulling any punches with the severity of these allegations. This announcement sent shockwaves through the business community because it raised all sorts of questions. If the Manhattan DA One of the most powerful prosecutors in America could use RICO statutes against a major real estate empire. What did that mean for everyone else navigating complex business regulations and tax strategies? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen Trump's supposed allies turn on him when legal heat intensifies. Trump's loyalty really only extends to himself. Whenever someone stops being useful or legal exposure gets too serious, business partners and political allies are quick to create distance. Just think about how major banks turned on Trump right after the January 6th Capitol attack. Deutsche Bank, his longtime lender, announced they'd no longer do business with him. Signature Bank closed his accounts. Then there was Michael Cohen. Trump wasn't pleased when Cohen started cooperating with federal prosecutors. Cohen got thrown under the bus immediately, labeled a liar and a traitor, even though he'd been Trump's fixer for over a decade. And let's not forget how corporate America distanced itself from Trump when his election fraud claims spiraled out of control. Companies like Shopify terminated his online stores. Twitter and Facebook banned him from their platforms. Now, it looks like Warren Buffett and the entire institutional investment community is in the hot seat. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world and defend your business relationships every single day, but the moment criminal RICO charges get filed, institutional investors will toss you aside without a second thought. So, what did the Trump Organization do to warrant RICO charges? Well, it all boils down to decades of alleged systematic fraud. Bragg's prosecutors decided the evidence showed a coordinated criminal enterprise, which justified using the RICO statute. As Manhattan District Attorney, Bragg decided to take an aggressive stance. He filed the RICO indictment and refused to wait for civil cases to conclude first. His approach seemed to be just go all in with the most serious charges the evidence supports. But as Trump's legal battles dragged into their third year, some issues started cropping up. Legal costs were mounting, Trump was using court delays as a campaign strategy, and media attention was creating jury pool contamination concerns. Some segments of the public began to shift their blame toward what they saw as politically motivated persecution. This was the moment some institutional investors began to sweat a little. Warren Buffett values reputation, long-term stability, and overall predictability in business environments. He doesn't want Berkshire Hathaway tied to anything generating this level of legal chaos. And then Bragg went ahead and made a move that, according to Trump's legal team, was a serious escalation. Bragg started looking at RICO statutes and figured he should apply organized crime laws to business fraud. He even considered charging Trump personally along with the organization itself. But then, when institutional investors caught wind of all this, they absolutely scrambled. In Buffett's eyes, RICO charges against a major real estate organization signal systemic corruption that could spread reputational damage across the entire commercial real estate sector. Any major corporation with Trump Organization ties is instantly labeled a potential co-conspirator or knowing participant in criminal enterprise. Now, this left major investors and financial institutions in a tight spot. On one side, they really need to protect their reputations and avoid any association with organized crime allegations. Shareholders will drop them like a hot potato if regulators or the public perceive them as connected to RICO defendants. On the flip side, they actually have to honor existing contractual obligations, loan agreements, and business partnerships that were established years before criminal charges were filed. That means figuring out how to legally exit those arrangements without breaching contracts or facing lawsuits for wrongful termination of business relationships. The tricky part is all of that requires some level of publicly acknowledging the seriousness of RICO charges and taking decisive action that could trigger Trump's notoriously litigious response. So major financial institutions are caught in a bind. They can either keep their existing Trump Organization relationships, which means potential reputational damage and regulatory scrutiny, and that only makes shareholders nervous and paints these institutions in a terrible light. Or they can terminate all Trump-related business dealings immediately, which means breach of contract lawsuits and Trump's public attacks. But that'll definitely make them look like they're presuming guilt before any conviction. It's a tough situation, and that's the mess Trump creates for business partners. He demands complete loyalty and wants them to stand by him without questioning. But then the legal system drops organized crime charges. He's not shy about attacking former partners whenever they distance themselves from him. This whole scenario is causing major stress within the business community. If prosecutors have enough evidence to file RICO charges against a major real estate organization and are willing to publicly compare it to mob operations, every corporation with complex financial structures is left wondering if they're the next target. Those mainstream corporations who are trying to balance aggressive tax strategies with legal compliance are now worried sick about being the next one to get hit with criminal enterprise allegations. Meanwhile, the hardline Trump loyalists believe Bragg isn't being fair and that he's too focused on political persecution rather than legitimate law enforcement. Things became even more intense when Jamie Dimon, one of Wall Street's most influential voices, reportedly told J.P. Morgan Chase executives in a private meeting this morning, according to sources who spoke to MSNBC, that they need to conduct an immediate review of any Trump Organization exposure. When someone as aligned with institutional stability as Jamie Dimon starts taking precautionary measures, you know the situation is serious. According to the indictment filed this morning, Bragg's team is alleging the Trump Organization engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity from 2001 through 2024. The legal filing claims systematic fraud across multiple business lines, including real estate valuations, insurance claims, and tax reporting. The prosecutors allege Trump Organization executives inflated property values when seeking loans, deflated those same properties for tax purposes, and created shell companies to hide transactions. That's the legal framework for organized crime prosecution. It's about showing a systematic pattern. The indictment uses phrases like systematic racketeering, coordinated criminal enterprise, and decades-long pattern of fraud. That's legal speak for saying the Trump Organization was running a criminal operation disguised as a legitimate business. Alvin Bragg using RICO statutes against Trump created a real stir. It's a significant move, reminding everyone that wealth and political power don't put you above the law. Legal experts are noting that we haven't seen RICO charges applied to a major American real estate organization since the prosecution of organized crime families in the 1980s and 1990s. Andrew McCarthy, a former federal prosecutor who's definitely not a liberal voice, went on Fox News this morning and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that if these allegations are proven, this would represent one of the most extensive business fraud prosecutions in American history, and the evidence burden for RICO is extraordinarily high, which means Bragg wouldn't file unless he believed he could prove it. Just think about that for a moment. A conservative legal expert on Fox News is acknowledging the seriousness of these charges rather than dismissing them as political theater. And this is coming from someone who's typically skeptical of prosecutions against Republican figures. Barbara McQuaid, a former U.S. attorney and current University of Michigan law professor, mentioned that RICO cases require proving both the underlying criminal acts and the existence of an enterprise created to commit those crimes. When legal experts from both sides start using terms like decades-long pattern and systematic enterprise, that's the moment to really pay attention. So, let's break down what this RICO indictment could mean, because it's not just a captivating legal story. It has serious consequences for how American business operates, political campaigns function, and institutional accountability works. First up is the immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing significant legal challenges due to 4 separate criminal indictments in 4 different jurisdictions, and his ability to campaign effectively is taking a hit. Republican primary voters are getting anxious about nominating someone facing organized crime charges, which is definitely adding to the tension. The RICO charges from Manhattan DA represent the most serious business fraud allegations yet. And honestly, that's not the best look for someone running for president. Most folks in America have a good deal of respect for law enforcement as a vital part of our system, even if they don't always agree with specific prosecutions. Democrats are definitely planning to take advantage of this situation. They'll argue that Trump believes he's above the law and does not hold basic business ethics or tax compliance in high regard, and they'll have a 127-page RICO indictment backing up those claims. This is going to be Exhibit A in proving that Trump's business career was built on systematic fraud. You can expect to see excerpts from this indictment popping up in Democratic campaign ads, speeches, and debates. The phrase organized crime charges will be repeated over and over. And every time Trump claims he's a successful businessman, Democrats will point to RICO allegations of systematic fraud spanning 2 decades. Now, let's touch on what this means for the business community itself. Warren Buffett has been working hard to keep Berkshire Hathaway's reputation pristine. But by issuing that emergency statement this morning, he's waded into a controversy that could affect how investors view the entire commercial real estate sector. Yet, Buffett probably felt he had no other choice. If he stayed silent while RICO charges were filed against a major business organization, his own company's credibility would take a hit. Institutional investors demand immediate clarity when organized crime allegations emerge. This situation shines a massive spotlight on business accountability and prosecutorial power. If Bragg succeeds with this prosecution, it could totally change how white-collar crime gets prosecuted. RICO opens the door to treating entire corporations as criminal enterprises subject to asset forfeiture and dissolution. The legal framework was designed this way to go after organized crime families who used legitimate businesses as fronts. The idea was that if you could prove a pattern of criminal activity coordinated through an organizational structure, you could take down the entire operation rather than just prosecuting individual crimes. But prosecutors have always been uncomfortable applying those same tools to major American corporations. They worry about economic disruption, job losses, and the precedent of treating business executives like mob bosses. If RICO becomes the standard tool for prosecuting corporate fraud, that's a significant boost to prosecutorial power, and it opens the door for future district attorneys to use these statutes against other major corporations. So, the implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump and Bragg. Each time a major corporation faces RICO charges, it weakens the traditional distinction between organized crime and aggressive business practices. Think about it. If Bragg can successfully prosecute Trump Organization under RICO, what's to stop the next district attorney from applying the same framework to other real estate developers or investment firms accused of systematic fraud? These precedents don't just disappear when individual cases conclude. They become part of our legal framework. Business regulation relies on clear boundaries between civil penalties and criminal prosecution. When those boundaries shift, corporate behavior itself starts to change. Looking ahead to November 2024, it's clear that all of this is going to have some significant effects. We're still 8 months out from the presidential election, but the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of Trump battling prosecutors and facing organized crime charges, that spells trouble for Republican electability. Voters usually don't reward chaos and legal baggage. They want stability and competence. Right now, Trump isn't offering either of those. So expect Democrats to champion a message focused on restoring normalcy and ethical governance. After years of scandal under Trump, there are folks who believe that if you vote for Biden or another Democrat, business and government will actually start working properly again. They're promising no more constant criminal indictments or RICO prosecutions, just good old normal governance where business fraud gets handled through appropriate legal channels rather than organized crime statutes. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some moderate Republicans and independent business owners who value legal stability. So here's the deal. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg just filed RICO charges against the Trump Organization, alleging it operated as a criminal enterprise for over 2 decades. This isn't just about tax fraud or business ethics violations. It's about using the legal framework designed for mob prosecutions against a major American corporation and a former president. If these charges succeed, then we're basically saying systematic corporate fraud deserves the same legal treatment as organized crime. That would mean we're stepping into a completely new realm where prosecutors have vastly expanded power to dismantle corporations, seize assets, and criminally prosecute entire business structures rather than just individual executives. It's about so much more than just whether Trump broke the law. It's about whether we genuinely have a legal system that holds wealthy and powerful people accountable, or if we're just stuck with whoever can afford the best lawyers and delay tactics. So keep an eye on this. Things are just heating up. The next few weeks are going to be crucial as Trump's legal team responds, and as we see whether other prosecutors follow Bragg's lead in applying RICO to corporate fraud cases. The stakes have never been higher, the legal theories more aggressive, and the outcome more unpredictable. This ride is far from over.